Good afternoon. It's Jamie and Drew coming to you live from the barn on the side of the lake, the heart of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
We're doing it, man.
We're doing it. We're making videos.
This is crazy. Welcome to the show, everybody. Yeah, I'm Drew McQuinn, Jamie Guilfoyle here, the dynamic duo in business, and we're starting our new podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess if you're wondering who we are, I'm Jamie Guilfoyle. I'm a licensed realtor here in Nova Scotia. I'm the president of Aquatique Translation Services, and I'm the managing director of commercial and investments at Air Realty here in Halifax.
Cool. And I'm Drew McQuinn. Been a banker for 15 years up until recently when I left my job to start my own media production company. And so I'm just living the dream right now and here with my pal to start delivering some value and information to our audience from our experiences, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been self-employed for, I guess, 10 years now, and gone through some of the highs and lows of not knowing where your next check is coming from and wondering if what you're doing is the right thing, and having success in business but not necessarily immediate success or huge financial success. There's success is a
relative term,
and it's going to depend on who you are. But I think one area that we could probably both agree on is that it's the middle of the day and we're here doing what we love.
Yeah, I mean, this is the dream. I mean, whatever happens, I'm happy. I'm in my happy place right now.
Yeah, life is very short. You never know when everything can change, and you got to follow your dreams.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think at the end of the day, the intention of this podcast is to help people follow their dreams. Really,
yeah.
It's to have the confidence to go after it. Maybe some of the wisdom or lack thereof to see when things are working or when it isn't. To see where the money's at and go after it, and to know that you're not alone. And insecurity and just having people in your life who you love who maybe don't understand what it is you're trying to do, or have a hard time coming to grips with the reality of giving up your steady paycheck to chase your dreams. This is all normal. And if you do it and you work the process and you have a plan, you can do it. You really can. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
If I can do it, yeah, absolutely. Using the experience that we've both gone through in kind of chasing that entrepreneurial spirit, I think we're trying to add value to you guys to have, maybe give you a little bit of more courage to go and follow your own dreams as well. So
I think this is a good segue there from where you're at, is that for me over the years and having my other business, the translation business, that's seen a lot of disruption from technology, for me, real estate has been a sort of cornerstone in, knowing that I have a place to live, and that some of the other things. And what I've been able to do throughout is I've had tenants in my life for 10 years. I do want to talk in the future about what it means to be, in my opinion, an ethical landlord. Landlords become kind of a dirty word in recent months because there's a lot of predatory and greasy and greedy landlords out there, and I think it's important not to be that. And we'll maybe talk in some later videos about how you can cover yourself but also still take good care of the people that are helping you to pay your bills. But we'll come back to that on another day. I think today we really want to talk about 3 ways that you can get into the real estate game in the summer of 2023. And at the moment, the prices are like we've never seen here in Atlantic Canada. Interest rates are higher than I've seen in my time that I've been doing this. Inflation is through the roof. Competition is through the roof. There's a lack of inventory. So there's a lot of things going against you that I think for many people at first blush, it's easy to say, oh, well, this is a bad time to get into real estate. The reality is, sure, 50 years ago, 20 years ago would have been a better time to get into real estate. The second best time is today.
Right.
And we want to highlight 3 ways that you can get into real estate, you can kind of protect and support yourself and have a good plan and way to succeed in getting into real estate
Yeah.
in the summer of 2023.
Yeah, 3 ways to get in. What in the kind of big inflation, high competition arena that we're in. So, okay, well, let's talk about the first way.
So the first way, and I think this is kind of it's hard for some people to get their head around it, and it isn't for everybody. But if you're watching this, there's maybe a higher likelihood that it's for you. But it's to find a way to have a secondary suite in your property. And basically this means is if you're looking to buy a house and maybe you've got in your mind, oh, I want to buy a place for myself, for my family, where you're going to live, you want to really think hard about how you can have a suite in the house. So ultimately, at first thought, you'd say, well, a duplex. Duplexes are much more expensive. So maybe what you're looking at instead is how you can buy a traditional single family home, but you're looking at it through the lens of how am I going to put a secondary unit into this that I can rent out. It doesn't have to be on a separate electrical meter. You're maybe going to be sharing electric together. You're maybe going to be sharing the driveway, some of the other tasks. But instead of the traditional thought of like, well, okay, I'm just going to have roommates in my house, and you can do that too. And the more people you can have there contributing, the less pressure it's going to be to you. This is sometimes called house hacking, but I would even look at this on a more specific approach. And it's okay, I want to have a space for someone else to be in it, but I don't really want to share my kitchen with them. I don't want to share my bathroom with them. And then the third thing is the entryway. So if you can find a house, and it doesn't have to be the work that's done to it, where this approach is maybe going to be
done.
You're maybe going to be getting out of your comfort zone and doing work that you would prefer to hire out for someone else, but instead you're going to be spending your evenings watching YouTube, learning how to do these tasks, and then spending your weekends picking away at it, driving back and forth to the hardware store. But if you do this, it's going to make a world of difference. So a prime example is a split entry home. Not all of them, but many of them are going to have, you sort of come in and there's stairs that go up and there's stairs that go down. And you're thinking about the downstairs. In particular, you want to see, okay, is there another door coming into the downstairs part of the house? Okay, check mark. That's the first thing you want to find. That's going to be your tenant or your extra suite. Maybe you're going to live in that suite and rent out the rest of the house, because you can certainly, the more that you can offer in your rent or in the rental suite, the more money you're going to be able to make. But so first things first, is there a second door? Like, what's the entrance point going to be in? Because the end goal is to have a space that you guys see each other on the outside, and maybe you can hear each other through the walls or the floor, but that none of your living space otherwise is going to be connected. So a separate entrance to come in, and it could be at the top of you walk in, not specifically split entry, but just here in Halifax. Those are often
you can do like you can put in a back door, really, if it's in a basement too.
So you can definitely put in new doors, but what you're trying to see is what's going to be the lowest barrier of entry. What's going to require the least amount of work to get this set up, because work is money. It's, even if it's just to put in a door, you're cutting, and the more work you're doing, the more things that can go wrong too. So ideally, what I'm looking for when I'm helping clients to find this is like, okay, what is going to be a reasonable barrier of entry? So in a basement, you can see things like, oh, there's space for a bedroom, but there's no window. You have to have an egress for it to be a bedroom legally. So if you're starting to cut into your foundation, the costs can add up really quickly. So
Right.
What we want to really walk in and try and envision where a suite can go and how much work is going to be there to get it. So oftentimes you're not going to have the kitchen down there, and that's where you can put a lot of money into it. So we don't have to have the kitchen in place, but we want to see where the plumbing stack is, because the kitchen's going to tie into that.
Right.
So you want to be able to put a sink in. And the other thing is you want to have a bathroom. So if you come into the basement, there's no plumbing, there's nothing, it's probably not the best fit. You want to find something that already has a bathroom, ideally a full bath. If there's a shower and the toilet and everything there, that's one thing right off the list. And then if you've got a wall that backs onto the plumbing and you say, okay, this is where my kitchen can go, I'm just going to have to cut a hole and tie in. There's some plumbing, but a lot of these jobs that feel like they're big jobs, as you start to get into it, you'll see that they're not necessarily huge tasks.
Would you say that the everyday person could do that kind of plumbing, or is it
Yes,
something that?
and I would say that because for myself, I grew up, I didn't have a handy father. He was a great guy, but like he didn't do any work like that.
Yeah.
I grew up, I was kind of a traditionally lazy guy, I would say. I didn't,
I wouldn't call it.
well, you know, but I did.
You're like
People would certainly have called me lazy for much of my life. These days, I've turned it around over the last 10 years. And but so the point being is that you could say, I got no experience. I don't know what to do. YouTube is an amazing resource. And so
so underestimated.
It is. And it's going to empower you that you're still going to make mistakes. And you're going to see people do foolish things on YouTube and pass it off as expertise. But really what you're looking for is just a critical mind to watch and say, so say you're going to be putting in, now certain tasks you're maybe just going to want to get a plumber to do. For plumbing and electrical, generally you need a plumber and an electrician to sign off on the work. They don't necessarily have to do it, but you don't want to be fooling around if you don't know what you're doing. But if you start watching videos of how to put in a new sink, put in a toilet, you'll pick up quickly. You know, it is not to underestimate how much work it is to educate yourself. It could be hours and hours of watching YouTube videos, of reading books, of just learning the ropes kind of. But then there's nothing quite like getting in there with a saw and being like, oh crap, I'm committed now. I got to figure this out.
I must. Yeah, it's amazing what gets activated in your brain when you're basically given no choice. You've started and you've got to finish the job.
Yeah, and so I think we could do hundreds of videos on how to put a suite in. But basically the underlying point is you want to come in and say, can this house have a suite? Am I going to have to be cutting through the foundation, or is it really just like some moderate tasks to extend plumbing that's already there? You don't really want to be putting in new sewage where it's not. It can be done, but it becomes increasingly more advanced and more expensive. So you want to really look, it's like, okay, is there plumbing here? Can I tie into it? Is there an entrance to it? With these sort of basic guidelines, if you can do that, that suite is going to change your life because, again, you know, we want to be an ethical landlord. You're not coming in trying to milk your tenants for everything, but you know, you're providing a service. If you can provide a good, clean place to live for people at a reasonable price, they're going to want that, and it's going to help you to afford this mortgage that might otherwise be really expensive.
And there's going to be no problem in getting it filled. Like these days it's just like it's almost kind of laughable that somebody would doubt that there'd be any vacancy. There's just so many people coming into town, into Halifax and Nova Scotia. Into the
country even.
Into the country.
There's more people on the globe, and Canada's a great place to live. And I'd heard a statistic, it's every 1.4 seconds there's a new Canadian.
Oh, so, right. Oh my God.
So the people are coming, and so you're ultimately providing a service here in Halifax now. The city didn't want you to have secondary suites before, but now where there's such a dramatic lack of supply, it has to be done to a certain level, but you know, you can have a suite in any house now pretty much.
Yeah. Is that pretty much it for that one?
Yeah, so ultimately the under point one, and this is a big one, but it's find a place that you can put a suite in.
Yeah, okay.
And if you don't want to do that and you're comfortable with it, you can have roommates, but if you can have roommates and an extra suite, you could theoretically get to a point where your entire mortgage is covered.
Right. And also it would help with, if you can get that suite registered as a legal unit, you can use that for helping you with your mortgage. So that will increase your ability to get lending from the bank when these prices are so high and the interest rates are really high. It makes your debt ratios look a whole lot nicer. So something to think about. Now, if it's something you should also be aware of is if it's a plan to do it and it's not in yet before you buy the house, the bank won't look at it. So maybe if you get co-signers, which is kind of the next point we're talking about.
I think brings a great segue to point two.
Right. So,
and that's to potentially to partner up or to have a co-signer. So now where you're seeing, Halifax used to be an inexpensive city to live. You're pretty much at a $400,000 baseline right now to get just about any house.
Yeah.
And it goes up from there. And my gut is that it's only going to go higher from that. I think we'll look back. It's hard for people here now because 7 years ago you could get a house for 200,000, and now today that house is 450. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, this is too much. But by the same token, my guess is in a few years, people are going to look back and say, remember when you could buy a house for $500,000? Because it's probably not always going to be like that.
Makes me depressed in a way. Well, not really, but
it is,
like,
and
it feels like we lost something.
It is, and I'm working with a lot of people, and it's hard to see because $500,000 is a huge amount of money, and for that to be, today, if you want to buy a house at 500, it's not like you just go buy what you want. There's at the moment X number of houses for sale in the city. It's under 150 excuse me, and what's available today is what you can buy, and it's probably not going to be for sale next week.
Yeah, I mean, like when we bought, it wasn't that long ago. It was like 15 years ago or something.
It's kind of long ago.
It was like, I guess so.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It's all relative. So when we bought, it was like 217, and that same house right now would be like 500, 550, and we'd never be able to get in. Like, it'd be impossible.
So impossible.
But that's what we're talking about.
So, and this is how it's how to get past it. So a very roundabout way. Say you're a single person and you've got a down payment saved up, and the bank's saying, well, you're qualify for $350,000. The reality is there's not a lot you can buy at that price right now. Yeah. And I will say this with a caveat that's not for everyone, and you want to be very careful about any business partnership. But if you're sitting in this situation, the point being is that you look at finding a partner. Now, in the past, traditionally, it would be a romantic partnership, a domestic partnership that a couple would buy a house together, and that is still absolutely a great way to do it. But what we're even seeing now is you have two people in a partnership. They both have jobs, they've got money, reasonable debt load, and they still can't qualify for what they need to get the house that they want. Yeah. And so what I think you're going to see a lot more of, and we hope to get a lawyer in to talk more about some of the things to think about and the traps involved, but is seeing people that are not in a domestic or romantic partnership working together to buy a house. Unfortunately, the days of the Canadian dream of, you go to school, you get a job, you buy a house, it's not the same anymore. And if it continues on this trajectory, buying houses will be reserved for only those who either were very lucky or have a lot of money or some combination thereof. But the way that you can get around that is if you can find someone who you are on a similar wavelength. You really have to treat it like a business partnership because it is that. Yeah. You're going to want to protect all parties with lawyers, but it's possible to now have 3 people that are saying, okay, well, we're going to buy this house together. Again, coming back to that same thought of we need to have a suite in it. And maybe you've got a couple or 2 couples or a couple and a third party who's just a friend and say, okay, we're going to buy this house. We're going to convert it. The single person's going to live in one unit and then the 2 people upstairs are going to live in that. You have a very meticulously laid out plan to say, when we come into a problem, we need to spend money. Who's going to put this money in? If someone's working harder, are they going to have capital and money attributed to that work that they're doing? You really want to accommodate for as many what ifs as you can think of. It's not probably going to cover everything, but the more you can lay out in a plan, say, oh, well, if one person wants to move out, this is how they're going to get bought out, or we're going to sell the house, and that, all of these things, there's no right solution for everyone, but the big thing is if you can plan for these before they happen, you kind of come up with the plan yourself, and then you take it to a lawyer, they help you beat it down, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we've got a good plan in place, there's 3 of us, now let's go find a house. Yeah. And these sort of less untraditional, unorthodox ways of doing it in the past, I think you're going to see a lot more of that as house prices continue to rise, and it really becomes the only way for people to actually buy something. Yeah,
I mean, I was looking at that sort of arrangement with a friend of mine, and what it came down to is making sure that I didn't come to fruition, but we got very close. And it was about creating a great exit strategy as well.
Yeah.
So that, if somebody wants to dissolve and break free, that they would be able to, have a plan that works for everybody that's, like you said, laid out very clearly so that there's no kind of legal repercussions.
Well, further to that, when you're living with someone, and I'm sure many people have experienced it, whether in a romantic partnership, but also with roommates or your family, it's easy to get annoyed with someone for any number of small things. But then when they start to be bigger things, so say if you don't have a good plan in place, there's no legal document, they just buy a house together, and then one person's doing all the work and they're putting money into the house and the other person's not, that very rapidly turns into resentment. And then what can happen is this resentment builds and then the relationship gets worse, and all of a sudden something that could have been very small to start becomes a huge thing, and now you can't stand the sight of each other. You don't want to live with one another. Yeah. You don't have a good exit plan. So the more you can account for, okay, if one person needs to get out, this is what happens. If one person comes into financial difficulty, this is what happens. If one person dies, these are all tough conversations to have, but I can guarantee it is much easier to have these conversations before you're stuck in the situation than in it, because not everyone communicates that well at the best of times, but then when you have something like a hard feeling or resentment or a death or loss or very difficult things that life throws at you, now all of a sudden you're scrambling to figure out what to do. But if you have a good plan and a good lawyer and you're on the same page, it also just takes those hard feelings out of the way, where it's like, oh, well, this guy is doing all this work, we have to add some value to that, or that's not an example of how to do it, but if you have this laid out, it's just like, well, there's not any wondering, you're not brooding over it, you're not stewing on like, oh, this guy's just like the worst. It's like, oh, this is what happens if I want to get out, this is what we're going to do. Yeah,
and they know that they're held to it legally from a contractual standpoint. The other option, obviously, is family and like blood relatives, because they usually don't need to live with you, but they can be co-signers.
Yeah.
Right. And so the bank of mom and dad is always an option to talk about, or
recognizing that not everybody has that option, but
not everybody
if
has
it's
that.
there, I'd say don't be ashamed or too proud to try and get it. And they may say no, and don't take it personally. I have been helped many times by my family, and also at times been denied help from my family. And money's a funny thing, because it's just in culture, not everyone looks at it the same way, not everyone feels about it the same way, people don't always talk about it the same way. And this is, there's a tradition of thinking of your house, it's an emotional thing, it's a personal thing, but especially as they become more expensive, it's a business thing at the end of the day. And if you can think of that and not take things personally and look at it from a sort of a step back as a business, that's going to help you probably in all of your dealings and transactions and whatever arrangement you come up with to actually get your foot in the door. Are we rolling?
Yep.
We've been joined by
a famous cat.
A famous cat, Radiger, the snow cat.
Yeah.
You can check him out here on my YouTube page. He's got millions of followers.
Yeah, he's straight up famous. Yeah.
He's been seen by more people than I'll probably ever even see in my lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's got the attitude to match. Radiger does not care about your feelings. So I guess then coming to...
What's the third? It was the third.
So the third one is a sort of more abstract thing, but I think it's an important mindset to accept if you're now, wanting to get into real estate in 2023.
Yeah.
And that is that of sacrifice. And this is will apply to a bunch of different things, but you want to just kind of get in your head that a lot of the things... So let's start with the house itself. You can't just go out today in the Halifax Regional Municipality and say, I want this house on this street, and I want it to be this many bedrooms, and I want the kitchen to be just so, and the bathroom, and there's none of that right now. You go on Viewpoint, is a popular site here where you can see basically all the info that's on the MLS, and you want to see what's for sale. my neighborhood, there's just no houses for sale. And one comes up and it'll be available for the weekend. And you can go and see it and you can love it and say, this house is perfect. It's listed at my price range, $450,000, say. And guess what? There's 17 offers received on it. And you don't know what the other offers are. You just have to throw your number into the ring and it could sell for way out of your budget. Oh, any number of things. So the first thing is that the house that you get, you're going to maybe have to sacrifice on that. You got to say, okay, and the mindset here too, a lot of people say, well, I want to buy my forever home. Could be your forever home, but to get, I think people should put that out of their head, especially if you're trying to buy your first house right now, that it's like, okay, I need to get my foot in the door. I'm going to build equity. I'm going to improve this home. I'm going to maybe do the other things we've talked about putting a suite in. And in doing so, then down the road, I get to be a little bit more financially sound. I've got some equity. I can sell this and then buy the house that I want to. Or I can move out and put tenants in the whole thing, keep saving for my next house, and now I'm buying the place that I want, and I've got this rent coming in from the other one. That's something that I'm passionate about, that may not be for everyone, but is a good way certainly to have a stable type of income there. Yeah. But the sacrifice is not just on the location and what the house is going to be. You're also maybe sacrificing on, we talked about partnering with someone, that it's not ideal maybe to buy a house with a third person, but if the difference is saying, well, I'm just going to rent forever, that could be fine, and there's nothing wrong with renting, but the biggest challenge with that is the lack of control. We've already seen the price of rents skyrocket, that it used to be you could rent a place somewheres for $800, and that was a lot when I was renting, and now you're in 2000, and I saw a place listed for $3,400. It was a half house, which is exorbitant, and I don't advocate for that because I would say that is a greedy probably, but those things you don't have that control. That you may have a place you love, you got a good rent, and then the place gets sold or it gets demolished or they want to move into it. So when you own it, you don't ever have to worry about being put out if you can pay your bills. So the sacrifice is thinking, okay, I've got to make these sacrifices to get the house. If you're spending $500,000, it's probably going to absolutely slash your living expenses and things that you maybe currently love to do. I hear avocado toast and Disney Plus are the reason people aren't. That was a joke, by the way. I know that's,
it's true. You got to basically be willing to give up some luxuries these days because the competition is fierce, and it's getting tighter.
Yeah, and it might even be beyond luxuries and even just $500,000 mortgage. That's a lot of money. It could be all of your money. And so it's saying, okay, I'm going to have to sacrifice by having tenants. I'm going to have to sacrifice by borrowing money that I wouldn't normally want to borrow. I'm going to have actually roommates in my living space with me that I don't want. But these sacrifices, it's like, okay, I'm cutting all my costs. I'm not going on vacation for years. My weekends and evenings are going to be spent learning how to do tasks and then executing on the tasks. So there's this sacrifice that's right across the board. But if you can get that into your mind and say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice, and it's not like sacrifice, but I'm going to make sacrifices for the next X years because this is my goal, and that if I keep my head down and I give up on this other stuff, and as you get further along in your life and in your career and in real estate, we come to find that obviously money is very important, but that time is an even greater currency. That when I was younger, I don't think I really valued time the way that I do now.
Yeah.
But that, you are sacrificing your time. But in doing that, if you say, okay, I'm going to put my time into doing this work myself instead of hiring someone so that I can save that money and do this and get, probably coming back to the suite idea. If you buy a house, it's like, well, I'd like to buy some furniture. I'd like to buy some nice curtains. No, all of my money right off the bat that I can get is going into getting a suite, making it the nicest part of the house, and then renting that out. I'll live in the crappier spot because I need to get this money coming back. And if you can get your head set into that kind of sacrifice mentality and being like, this is what's important, you want to, family is more important and health and life is more important than this. But if you can buckle down and do that for a while, those returns will come back to you, and it's going to let you take a big leap forward. And coming back to this thought that it might be that a baseline house in 10 years is like in Vancouver, that it's $1 million to buy something. you're going to be really happy that you buckled down and bought this house for $500,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's basically trying to help people understand that the days of the $200,000 houses are gone. They're not coming back. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. It's not coming back.
It costs it's $200 a square foot to build something.
It'll never come back.
No. You can't build a house for $200,000. And so, let alone buy the land and put your electrical and your sewage and all those hookups, everything in it. Those days are gone for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to get worse.
Well, there's some options for you out there, though, even in these crazy times. So I guess those are the 3 tips, right?
I'm going to just add a little note onto the end of sacrifice there. But and I think this is good in life is to don't feel sorry for yourself. Or if you're going to, you can take a minute and be like, this sucks. I should have done it some years ago. I should have done this. Life has been hard. Life is hard for sure.
Yeah.
And it's normal to feel bad, but it's very important that you can pick up and be like, okay, this bad things happened. Now, how do I find my solution? And I think that'll help you. It'll help you make peace with the sacrifices that you have to make to do it.
Yeah. It's a different attitude, but that's okay. Things change, and you got to just change with it. So
this is absolutely it.
Could we end off with like kind of a life lesson too? I mean, that was kind of a life lesson right there, but I'd like to kind of end these with like a life experience hack or some value we can give from our mistakes and our experience. So
I could go on about that for sure. Number one, here's the thing, and it's going to sound crazy to some people. It's not morbid. Don't dwell on it, but you're going to die. And and everyone you love is going to die. And don't get caught up in that. It's not something you can control. But if you can think about that sometimes, it's going to maybe help you look at certain problems in a different light and say, okay, is this a problem that I can get past or not? Am I wasting my energy on something that I don't actually even really care about? Is this a person that's taking energy out of it? Whatever it is, it's like life is problems. You're always going to have that. But if you can keep in your mind that, hey, I've got a set number of days that I don't even know what that is. Am I doing what I want to be doing with the day that I have today? And, live in the present, plan, don't go too crazy, but, that's, I think, an important thing. And if you can live that way with purpose and a sense of your own mortality, life is a little sweeter.
You're doing all right, yeah. I like that. And, okay, I'm going to throw out one too. I would say, just taking this whole experience of me leaving the bank, the only thing I've known for the last 15 years, working with friends like Jamie, and going into something completely unknown, I would say if you really want to do it, do it. Like if these days you can almost make money doing anything. I would. That's not completely true, but it's like there's so many avenues that you can use to monetize your passions. And I would say just make a plan, talk to people that are doing it, and work your way out. And don't stay in a job that you hate. It's like, it's tougher for some people than others. I get it. But I've got a family, I've got a house. We've got all kind of the overheads that a lot of families have. And it can be done. I guess that's what I want to relay, is it can be done. I haven't
you
made
can do it.
Yeah, you can do it.
You can do it.
I won't say that I've hit the big time yet, but it's going to happen. I'm calling it into my universe. I'm speaking it into reality.
I think that's really what we want to talk about as we do more of these videos, is just how we're both in varying stages of being at, like, when I lost my job 10 years ago at the ad agency, I was like, I'm starting a business. For many people in my life, it was like, you can't do that. That's crazy. Yeah. What's your plan? Now, since then, I do have my different ideas about planning and maybe a bit more conservative with certain types of risk, but 100%. If you have a plan and you want it, you can do it. And if you, even something happens that doesn't go according to plan, I think if you live in such a way that you go and do it, like that's a win. That's the best life you can hope for, is following your dreams.
Well, and also what happens is when you start doing the thing that you really want to do, that you're meant to do, the wind's at your back. And all this like buried energy that was inside of you starts to come to life. And you start waking up early. You start like figuring out problems in your spare time just because you want to, instead of dreading wanting to get out of bed.
There, because when I said earlier that I was kind of a traditionally lazy person, which is true, it was when I started working on my own and doing what I wanted to that I still have lazy tendencies, but it's like this has to be done, and it's not because someone else is telling me to do it. It's because I know if I don't do it, I'm screwed. So I got to do it, and I think that definitely was a game changer for me in my attitude towards work and going after stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to be pinned to a job. That's what I'll leave you with. So anyway, that's, I guess
YOLO,
that's
baby.
it, man. Yeah.
Go get it. This is your life. What are you
like,
going to do with it?
Living the life you want, right? Let's wrap it up, I guess. We're trying to keep this podcast going, so make sure that you like and subscribe, and share it with as many people as you can. Comment below, let us know what your journey is, and we'll try to get back to as many people as we can in the comments. And we'll just keep this going and try to add as much value to you guys as possible.
Go get it. Party.